Shri Vaheguru Sahib Jiyo. He kaman narak bisraaman bahujoni parmavan chit haranang trailok gamyang jap tap sir bedarana arp sukh avit chanchal ऊच नीच समावन है तब भै बिमुंचित साध संगम ओट नानक नारायण तब भै बिमुंचित साध संगम ओट नानक नारायण। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। संगत जी, continuing with Guru Arjun Dev Ji Paatshahji's Bani of Salok Sehaskriti. This was the 46th Salok that we've all just listened to. Guru Arjun Dev Ji Paatshahji today is telling us, bringing to light for us, that if lust is to go out of control, meaning if we're not able to get a grip, if we're not able to control lust, if we're not able to recognize when it's coming, if we're not able to be conscious of it, then Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshahji tell us that lust that actually serves a purpose in our life, it can actually ruin our life, and it can take us to narak, it can take us to hell. Pyareo, narak ek tarah da nahi hunda, but narak, but hell, there's not just one type of hell. Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshahji's words, let's all go through them. He kaman, Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshahji is speaking directly to the kam, to the lust itself. Singh, even though there's many of times throughout Gurbani, the word kam can be translated merely to, meaning only to, to desires, any form of desire, any form of want. But over here, Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshahji is talking about that calm, that deep desire for having this sexual lust, desire for having this sexual lust. This is what Guru Arjan Dev Ji Paatshahji is talking about in this salok. So that's what we'll be focusing on, only on that one particular desire. And Paatshahji is saying here, ke he kamang narak bisraaman. Bisraaman, if we was to translate that literally, bisram means rest, place. It meaning here, it'll take you to that place of where, of narak, of hell. And then Guru Sahib Ji say, bahujoni parmavan, and it'll actually keep you in many joni, meaning junes, june meaning lives. Parmavane means to go round and round, you will wonder, meaning you'll remain stuck in that cycle of birth and death. So first of all, it's very important for us to understand what Kam is. All of us, we're all born with this natural drive to procreate, meaning to keep this whole game of Vaheguru Ji, keep it at play, to keep it going. So we've all got that inside of us, to actually bring more life into this world, because that is a part of Vaheguru Ji's play. Sadhguru Ji Paatshahji they themselves, Guru Arjun Dev Ji Pacha Ji, they call this a play themselves many times, and they say that Avan Jan ek khel banaya. That Guru Sahib Ji say to us that Avan Jan ek khel banaya. That there's this game that has been created by our Creator, and that is of what? That Avan coming, Javan going, being born and then dying, this coming and going. Sangaji, but for somebody to be born, remember it all comes from that drive inside of procreation to bring somebody into this world. And that's what this whole game is actually based on. So this is actually a natural response within somebody's, it's the way somebody's brain actually reacts. But this reaction from the brain, it comes from our subconscious mind, meaning not something that we actively activate, or should I say, it's not something that we consciously activate. It's not something that we stand there and we click our fingers and we say to ourselves that, okay, so Baljit Singh, after 3 seconds, you're gonna have feelings of lust towards this person, towards this human being, to this other person. It doesn't work like that, because that natural drive is inside of us. And when somebody actually sees somebody and they see someone to be that potential for them for that game of procreation, and what happens is, so there's a gland within our brain, and don't think this is a science lesson, and the reason why I'm talking about this is so that we can understand all these energies that have been built into us. They all serve a purpose. And so inside of us, within our brain, there's the pituitary gland, which actually it releases the chemicals in response of somebody if they sees a potential mate. So Sangat Ji, and then what happens, and that is that lust, which is, it serves its purpose, because if that was not there, even if somebody was there and somebody was there with their own partner, with their own wife, if that wasn't built inside of us, if that gland didn't exist, then that wouldn't happen. This whole game of Vaheguru Ji wouldn't continue, wouldn't play out, if that wasn't built inside into us. But Sangat Ji, it's there for that purpose, and Satguru Ji and Guru Sahib Ji have given us our guidelines. Bhai Gurdas Ji has told us very clearly that eka nari jati hoye par nari thi pain vakhane. That Bhai Gurdas Ji say to us, that a jati, that you are then recognized as being somebody that has so much self-control, that somebody that actually settles down and marries and gives themselves and commits to one woman. Eka nari, one. Bhai Gurdas Ji saying, this is our Gurmat. Eka nari jati hoye. And because then all other women, for that person then becomes par nari ti, becomes like your daughter. Ti pan becomes like your sister. Eka nari jati hoye par nari ti pan vakhane. So they're saying that everyone else that you see now as your mother, your daughter, your sister. But if that wasn't built inside of us, then even with our own wife, that desire wouldn't well up from inside to actually have any form of intimate relationship. So then you could have actually any children. So, Pyareo, but when that actually hijacks our life and it takes over, we all know the horrendous things and the horrendous type of crimes that can actually come from that. Even though that is something that is controlled by our subconscious mind, and it's not something that we consciously activate. It's something that just subconsciously activates when the situation is, you could word it in a way, when the situation or the atmosphere is created within oneself. But there's huge danger. As well as it looked upon as being something healthy, but then why is it then within the places like the Bible, it's said to be one of the 7 out of the 7 sins? It's part of one of the 7 sins. And why is that? Because today there's been studies that have been done that through MRI scans, they've been able to see that as well as it being something that is looked upon as being a natural, healthy part of a human being, but they're saying it's such a fine line, that fine line, they're saying that what they have noticed through these MRI scans is that it actually highlights parts of the brain, the same parts of the brain that are highlighted within a drug addict. When somebody is actually addicted to a particular drug and what their brain is constantly going for, that brain, when it is craving for that nasha, for that drug, and the addict, what they go through, and they're saying that it's got such a fine line when we're not conscious of the purpose of this, and when we're just asleep to it, that what lust actually is, and when we need it and when we don't need it. What happens is it can become this addiction that can actually take over our life. The same parts are actually highlighting, and then somebody could start constantly craving that, and then them consciously, that's all that is there in their thoughts, and it could actually take over one's thoughts. And when it starts to take over somebody's thoughts, that's all they are thinking of. When somebody, that's all they are craving, that's all they are thinking of, that is the very thing that can lead into then things like porn addiction, things like then even people, it could lead into things like rape as well. But rape, not all cases of rape actually come from a lustful mind that has gone out of control, and where it's become an addiction in one's mind, when it's this constant thought net going round and round. And remember, when somebody's thoughts have been hijacked with lustful thoughts now, constantly thinking about having a sexual active relationship with someone, not even a relationship, but just the act itself, just to only be sexual with somebody. And Sangaji, and I know I did have a message from one of the Hukamnama Kathas when speaking of something of a similar subject, to say that sometimes it can become a little bit difficult to watch these type of kathas with our children. But Sangatji, the truth is, if my Sadhguruji Pachaji is talking about this, then I don't really know how else to talk about this, other than to be very, bringing it to a level and language of what we actually understand. Because what I don't want to be doing is trying to speak in riddles and trying to use such language where we actually might miss the point completely. If my Satguruji Pachaji is here right out talking about here kaman, narak, bisraaman, bahujoni, parmavane, I think then it's important for us to actually highlight what Satguruji Pachaji is talking about here very clearly. Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pachaji talk about those people that have ended up with such a low character, and it's because of that lust that has gone out of control. And then one might ask the question, then okay, if it's something that is an auto response and it's from our subconscious mind, but Sangaji, there are meditators that are able those people that jap a lot of naam are immersed in kirtan, are immersed in the love of the Sangat and the Guru and serving humanity, that sit in meditation of naam. They act, those responses then that might have been from that subconscious mind and that aren't something that we can consciously activate, that reduces, that becomes less and less. As it becomes less and less, and then when that time comes for when you've decided as a couple, when you're in a marriage and you've decided now that you want to have children, then you're actively, consciously able to make that choice yourself without even needing a response from that gland to actually release any form of chemicals. But Sangat Ji, that you may say, well, okay, so that's an option, meaning that's where some people reach that stage, but the truth is majority of us will not fit into that category. And that is just being very real here. It's not being negative, it's not putting anyone down. It's just looking at reality, and obviously myself speaking to people and being amongst a lot of Sangat. But most of us will be in that category, well, when, sometimes we're in denial of it ourselves. Somebody might be going down the road and, they notice somebody. And they might think that there's some form of an attraction, or you've just noticed their beauty, or whatever it may be. And then kicks in that guilt, and then that kicks in that denial that no, you know what, it can't have been that, you know what, no, she's definitely my sister. And then all this craziness goes on in your own mind. There's no denial that your brain isn't acknowledging that it's that, from your Guru's mat, then consciously, yes, you can bring that forward, that Guru's mat, the Guru's way and the Guru's teaching that this is my sister. But if we're not at that meditative state constantly, then yes, it will be an auto response from that gland within our brain, because the way that nature has made us, it will automatically think procreation, and it won't think of love or anything else. That's all it will think, because that's the way Vaheguru Ji has made this. But at that point, Sangat Ji, then if we've got the Guru's mat inside of us, then we can have enough consciousness to actually control that and say, oh, I understand what that is. Okay, so then it doesn't become this overpowering desire, this intense desire for lust. It doesn't become that, because now you're conscious, now you understand. And that's what it means to take on a guru. That's what it means to actually take on a mantra. And then when we're consciously reciting that mantra, and then when anything happens, even if that happens, then we don't have to feel guilt. We don't have to think I've just gone against my guru. We don't have to think, oh, I'm so dirty. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm still there. No, then the response could be very simple. It could be, oh, I get it. That's just the way we are wired. That's okay. But then you can consciously tell your brain, oh no, I'm all right, thank you. At the moment, I'm not ready for that. At the moment, I'm not married. I'm already married. But I understand what was going on there. See how different it can become is when we've got the awareness. That's why Bhagat Kabir Ji say to us, Kende Kabir, Kende Jaha Gyan Tah Dharm Hai. Kende Jodo ek wari Gyan ho gaya. When we start to realize, and that's why Pyareo, now what I might be doing is now, not might be, what I'm doing is I'm kind of making this, I'm putting it in scientific terms. But I always think, when people say, why are you going all scientific? But the truth is, Sangat Ji, that what is it that we call science? Science is someone's done a certain a certain element of experiments to come to a certain amount of conclusions about a particular subject, to understand something. But even they don't say this is it. So they open then, so they're not saying, they understand the whole idea of bahota kahiye bahota hoye, that yes, we've said up to this much yet, but there could be much more yet that we could actually end up kind of coming to know even more. So Sangat ji, maaf karna, Da sometimes loses his words, and that word that I'm just looking for, like I've said before, my Punjabi flows more than my English. And so Sangat ji, when we've got that gyan, Kabir jaha gyan teh dharma hai, we've got that gyan now, we've just understood this. We all say that these things hold a purpose, and when sometimes we know how something is actually working, we know, okay, this is now released this because of this, and we can think, oh great, okay, and now we can just be conscious, done, move on. Yes, she's like my sister, she's like my mother, she's like my daughter. We don't need to go into any more than that. Sangat ji, but when it gets out of control, when it then becomes a habit, when we've got no Guru's mat given to us, when we aren't following the Guru's teachings, what will happen to us is, because we'll be living in unawareness, there's no Guru's mat inside of us. Guru's mat means Guru's wisdom. Because Guru's wisdom, we live that. Sangat ji, it's stored in our memory. So for example, it's stored inside of us that Guru Sahib Ji, Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pachi said to us that Man ka soot ko lobh hai, jehva soot ko kood, akhi soot ko vekhna partreya. Pacha is saying that with your eyes you become impure, you make your mind impure more and more. They said as you are looking, you're checking out girls, you're checking out guys. So Pacha is saying that you become impure. So that is now Guru's wisdom, Guru's mat. That's why Satguru Ji Pacha say to us, kende Gur ki mat tu leh e aane. Kende listen, kende for you to receive the Guru's mat, you have to become like a Iyana first. Iyana means, Sangat ji, over here, Pachi is saying, even though it's translated as ignorant fool, but Sangat ji, that's not the way we're going to be looking at this. The way we're going to be looking at this is in actually something very positive. Iyana it could be a very, very positive state to be in. Iyana means when we become innocent, childlike. So we have to become like an Iyana to receive the Guru's mat. Meaning that I'm not trying to be clever, I'm not trying to be I know it all, but instead I'm putting my guard down and I'm surrendering in the sanctuary of those saints. Because even when we look at this particular salok, Satguru Ji Pacha Ji will say to us that how can we escape? They say that Tava Pa Bimunchit Sad Sangam. They said it's through the Sad Sangam. It's through the Sangat, it's through the Sangat of saints. So Satguru Ji Pacha Ji here over there is saying to us, Kende Gur ki mat tu lehe eane. Kende that we have to first become that Iyana. We have to become that childlike first. Imagine if a child goes to school. That child hasn't actually got it right. The child hasn't actually got the knowledge of how to actually do those particular sums and do those particular multiplications. We haven't actually got the gyan of how to become more aware and to save ourselves from lust actually getting control of us, where it could lead up to ruining our relationship. Because how could lust actually ruin a good marriage? Because in lust, Sangat ji, you only are interested then in your partner's body. All you're looking for, all you're waiting for, when can you have that intimate physical moment with your partner? But there is no interest in actually spending any other quality time with that partner. It's soon as you actually, what you are desiring, as soon as you actually get what you are desiring, and then you're right, thank you very much, and then you switch off, and then you just go back on your phone, because for you've got what you want, and that is lust. And then Sangatji, and then having no other, there's no other chaw from inside, there's no other inside that excitement to, yes, wanting to spend any more than that with your partner, spending quality time, growing as a couple spiritually, doing spiritual things together, meditating together, doing kirtan together, whatever it may be. You know, just sitting in the garden looking at flowers together. Whatever it is, that having that connection with your partner. But then when it just becomes like, oh, you know what, oh man, it's been so many days now, that's, you know, and I can't be bothered like to make any kind of, you know, dilly-dally chat. And that is lust, Sangatji. That could ruin somebody's relationship and marriage. And then once that actually goes out of control, there won't be, for most people, when that's not in control, when there's no love there isn't that sacrifice to be unconditional. And even if that wasn't a part of the relationship for whatever reason, but your love wouldn't be tainted, your relationship wouldn't be affected, because it's actually your relationship is standing on these great qualities. Like what? Just like Bhagat Farid Ji say. Bhagat Farid Ji say that your relationship is on what? Is based on that nevan so akhar, khavan gun, jehba maniya mant, e tre bhane veskar ta bas avi kant. That's why Bhagat Farid Ji is saying, kende nevan so akhar, that your relationship is built on these beautiful qualities like humbling yourself before your partner. Things like what? Nevan so akhar khavan gun is being tolerant, having patience with each other, growing with each other. If one partner really enjoys to do gardening, and that may not even be your joy for you in your life, but because that love is there for your partner, then there's that sacrifice, because love is sacrifice. There is that sacrifice, and it's unconditional. It's not based on, well, okay, if I do some gardening with you, then you've got to definitely sit down and watch that program with me, even though you can't stand it. Nahi pyareo, khavan gun, having that quality of having that patience with each other, being unconditional, not setting conditions. मैं आ कीता तो तू मेरे लिए आ कर दे, तू मेरे लिए 2 रोटियां बनाइयां हुण तू अज कल तू तेनू आ करना पा. Yes, obviously they're sharing these duties, but it's not about only doing it because of they did that, and then expecting it because I've done that, now I need that back. No, in pyar, in love, you will naturally, Sangat Ji, you will naturally just work with each other, and you will just do things. And those of you that aren't able to relate to that, I know because we're talking about lust, but just talking about an unconditional relationship, if you're not able to relate because of not being married, or for whatever reason not having a partner, you could look at that being a base of your relationship with anyone, with your mother, father, sibling. Once you've got those things, then relationship can never break down. That jehba maniya mant, that making your mantra. What mantra should we recite to make that relationship blooming, to make it that relationship is constantly spring, is beautiful fragrance, it's blooming? How? Jehba, from your tongue, speaking sweetly to each other. From your tongue, never putting the other person down. Always wanting the better for them, always wanting their pala. Sangat Ji, Guru Angad Dev Ji Pachi served Guru Nanak Dev Ji Pachi with these 3 pabbe. 3 ਪੱਬਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰੇ ਭਾਈ ਲਹਿਣਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਧੰਨ ਭਾਈ ਲਹਿਣਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕੀਤੀ। ਪਿਆਰਿਓ, ਉਹ ਕਿਹੜੇ 3 ਗੁਣ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ? what 3 ਗੁਣ did they have inside of them? ਦੇਖੋ, ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਕੁਝ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਭਾਈ ਲਹਿਣਾ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ, ਜੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਲੈਣਿਆ ਤੂੰ ਜਾ, ਲੈਣਿਆ ਤੂੰ ਆ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕੁਝ ਕਰ, go and do this, and if Bhai Lehna Ji went and did it, and for whatever reason, if Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji ever scolded them, and even within Bhai Lehna Ji, within their mind, they actually genuinely thought they've done exactly as Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji said, and the response for somebody like me wouldn't be a response, it would actually be reacting out of habit and that subconscious mind, reacting and saying, la main to udaਂ ਹੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ, I did as you said, reacting just like that, saying, you know what, you're the one that said to me to do it like that, this ain't my fault, oh it's such and such fault, no, you said that to me। नहीं, ਭਾਈ ਧੰਨ ਭਾਈ ਲਹਿਣਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਕਮਾਈ। ਪਿਆਰਿਓ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਭੱਬੇ ਤੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਕਮਾਈ? ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਹਰ ਸਮੇਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਰਸਨਾ ਤੇ ਕੀ ਰੱਖਣਾ? ਮੈਂ ਭੁੱਲ ਗਿਆ। Did I always say, hey Guru Nanak Dev Ji Paatshah Ji, ਮੈਂ ਭੁੱਲ ਗਿਆ, I've made the mistake, it's my mistake, you are perfect my Guru, whatever you told me to do, I wasn't able to do it in that way, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤਰਸ ਖਾਓ, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਹੋਰ ਸਮਝਾ ਦਿਓ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹਿਰਦਾ ਬੜਾ ਵਿਸ਼ਾਲ ਜੇ। Hey Paatshah Ji, that your hirda, your heart is so great that if you are to take pity on me, please bless me and show me the way again of how to rectify this mistake। मैं भुल गया। प्यारे, this is the base of a relationship, not lust. The base of a relationship with each other. Sometimes Sangat Ji, it's just having that inside and letting go of our pride and never so akkar, taking that humbleness of going down and saying main bhul gaya। If you're not enjoying the food I made, then I've messed up, it's not because I've done it just as you asked me to, no, main bhul gaya, please give me another opportunity, let me make it again for you, main bhul gaya। Never so akkar। Sangat Ji, if a relationship, if that lust is there, Sangat Ji, there's nothing wrong with it if it's controlled and it's mutual and that love is there as well। But at the same time, Sangat Ji, jehba maniya mant, by speaking sweet to each other, always wanting each other's pala, and that's why then having always somebody's best interest in mind, always wanting good for them। So आओ खैर प्यारियो, सच्चे पातशाह जी कहने लगे, कहते हे कामन narak bisraaman, those that whose minds are now constantly thinking about, that's all they can think about, and the mind is just taken over by the thought of some form of sexual activity with somebody. That's all they can think about. That is hell, that is going round and round, that is parmavane, that is a junni in itself, that is birth, and that is the pain of birth and death in itself. And because when your mind is taken over in that way, Sangat Ji, we're not able to then focus on life. You'll get yourself into trouble, be at work, be at, if you've gone out, wherever you are, be even sitting at the Gurdwara Sahib. But then Sache Paatshah Ji say to us, Bahut joni parmavan hai, but then if we even die within that thought, then we will continue in that cycle of birth and death. And Paatshah is saying, actually, that is narak. What is the hell? The hell is that cycle of birth and death. That's what hell is. Being not being in control, of constantly of chasing that lustful thought, that is hell, that is narak. Aao pyareo, chit haranang, Pach is saying, your chit, your mind, your thoughts have been haranang. Haranang means they've been taken away. They've been stolen by lust now. Now, that's all that is there, that is going round and round. The lok gamyang, they're saying that the lok, they said, hey narak, Pach is saying, hey, remember, maaf karna, hey kamang. So throughout this, you remember, Sanji, hey kamang, Sadhguru Ji is talking to the actual calm itself, saying, hey kamang, oh lust, kende, you've taken over my thoughts. Kende tralok gamyang, kende, you are such that you are able to reach. Gamyang, gamma means to reach. You actually are able to reach out to the tralok. Tralok, Sanji, means to heaven, to hell, to this world. That's how far your reach is. Oh, because if you read the stories, Sangatji, of even if you read the stories of the gods, of the deities, of those like Brahma, of those like Indra Devta, if you read even their stories, you'll come to know. Read up about the lust of Indra Devta yourself, and you'll find out how he became so lustful, and he took form of a rishi just so he could go and sleep with his wife. And Sangaji, it's just saying that, meaning here, if we're not able to relate to that, meaning that this calm is such that it comes and grabs all sorts of people. But it's saying japa, even those people that are trying to recite mantras. It says those people that are doing japa, those that are in the Devlok, that are doing tap, are carrying out, doing so much penance, that are actually doing seva as well. That might be in the Gurdwara Sahib distributing langar. They said even those that, hey Kamang, that you even end up reaching those places. Seal meaning those that were trying to live by good morals and thought that, you know what, I live by these, you know, I've got a high. Punjabi ch kehndे ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦੇ, even though this is an English word, but in Punjabi, especially in India, they don't really say it here much, and they say ਇਹਦਾ character ਬੜਾ ਉੱਚਾ ਹੈ. They don't say character, they say character. They say ਇਹਦਾ character ਬੜਾ ਉੱਚਾ ਹੈ. They say look how high his character is. So people that even try and live by a discipline, they said, but calm comes and smashes them as well. Paatsaji saying, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਵੀ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਆ. ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਬਿਦਾਰਣੇ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ means comes and destroys them as well. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ but ਚੇਤਾ ਰੱਖੋ ਪਾਚ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹਦਾ, you know, the pleasure that you get, sukh here means pleasure in the next pankti. It says, you know, the pleasure that you get from what this lust is actually desiring. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ alap, it's so small, it's short lived, ਥੋੜੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਲਈ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ. ਕਹਿੰਦੇ that is just like a hit somebody gets when they snort cocaine. Remember, the same parts of the brain are actually activated. That pleasure that somebody gets from that lust, kende alapabo, it's so short lived. Kende avit chanchal ਇਹਦਾ ਦੋ ਤਰੀਕਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਹਾਪੁਰਖਾਂ ਨੇ, ਨਾਲੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਿਦਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹਦਾ ਅਰਥ ਕੀਤਾ ਆ. So in two ways this has been translated now. Avit, the word avit. They're saying avit, Professor Sahib Singh has said avit means to be tanheen, meaning to somebody that has been robbed of their wealth. And they said that chanchal, that maya, meaning that calm, that lust is so chanchal, that is so fickle, that it doesn't let you rest. And what it does is avit, it robs you of the wealth of you having such and living by high morals within your own mind, trying to live accordingly to, you know, such having a disciplined life. They're saying that it even robs you of that wealth, that if calm takes over you and you don't live consciously and you don't actually, you know, be aware of it, live in the awareness of what's going on with you. And then Pachji, the other way of looking at this is Taksal. They've translated this avit to meaning anghin, meaning that calm is so dangerous because it hasn't got a form. It's formless, So it's an emotion that cannot be seen. So that's why when it takes over, it's so chanchal and it starts messing with our brain, but we can't see it. So Pachaji is saying here, Uch Neech Samavana, that calm, that lust is such that it doesn't care for who it is. It even takes over those that are Uch. Somebody that's rich, it doesn't matter how much money somebody's got. Somebody that's neat, somebody that hasn't got much wealth. Uch can mean even if somebody has reached a high status to some extent. Somebody that potentially reads a lot of Gurbani, that it could even take over them. And there's somebody that is niche, somebody that obviously that doesn't even practice any form of taram, they don't follow any way of life, any religion. So but there is a way that you can actually, tav means your, pa means the fear of you, O calm, O lust, I can be free, can be freed from it. How can I be liberated from the fear of this calm, of what it can potentially do to me? Sad Sangam Ot Nanak Narayana, those sadhus, those holy beings, those sants, those mahapurukhs, those gurmukhs that are besotted, that have already overcome all of these energies, they said those that take ot, those that take support of Vaheguru Ji, of Narayana, can they to be in the sangat of those. Sangat Ji, and that's why, because this may have seemed very confusing, that aren't we supposed to be reciting a mantra, aren't we supposed to be reciting Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru? Then we thought, well, isn't that what we do? We do seva as well. See it, we try to live within a discipline as well. So meaning that all these type of people have somehow, at some point, they have fallen. Sangaji, but then, yes, these are all tools and aids that can help us in our journey. But Sangaji, at the same time, Pachaji saying, but the most important thing for you to do is, for you to be safe, to where you can actually have more self-control and overcome it, is to be amongst those, in the sangat of those whose energy level is so vibrant, is so high, and they are vibrating in the vibration of love, of what we just spoke about, of being unconditional. They are vibrating in that place of where they are selfless. They are vibrating even higher than emotions. They have now got in touch with that energy that is spread everywhere, who we call Vaheguru, who we call that one. They are now buzzing. They are now in ecstasy. They've gone beyond even love. Love is just there as a byproduct, but even greater than Sangaji, that place of love is when you're in that oneness, when you become the water itself, you become the ocean itself. And then Sangaji, nobody will have to teach you about love. You can't see anything but that one. When you're in the vibration of those, they won't just say to you, oi, don't be so lustful, because that doesn't work. Their vibration is such, they will give us jugatiyan, they will give us these tricks of the trade, they'll tell us little things to do that will keep us and make us live in more awareness. So Sangaji, so your takeaway for today's Katha, I'm just going to share a story with you, just so that we can relate that often when we think of somebody that is lustful, sometimes we could end up judging them, Sangaji. We could end up judging them to be bad people, but absolutely not, Sangaji. Now you all understand that it's actually a release of chemicals from a gland within our brain, and just to help us in that process of life, of what we call procreation. And Sangaji, it's not somebody isn't a bad person. It can happen to anyone. when somebody is acting only out of that energy and they're not living consciously. It happened to Pandu. Sangaji, Pandu was was from the epic Mahabharata story. And Pandu, Sangaji, what happened with him, Pandu was, he was out hunting one day, and in the jungles, Pandu didn't realize that he couldn't see properly, that there was from what he could see, for him he saw a deer, but actually the deer was at quite a distance, and he didn't realize as well there were two deers there, and one of them were pregnant. And he actually took his arrow, and as he was hunting, because he was a Kshatri, because he was from the warrior class, he shot his arrow and he hit one of the deers, but not realizing actually that was a great rishi, a great meditator who was actually in the jungles, and he had taken, so to anybody else it looked as from a distance the form of a deer, but if he had been more focused and more conscious and he went closer, he would have been able to realize that actually that's the rishi. And as he shot that deer and the rishi roop became clear, and Pandu went closer, and Pandu saw that rishi, this was such and such a rishi, and it was his wife. That was actually, he was with his wife, and his wife is pregnant. The rishi said to Pandu, because he saw that Pandu is not actually he's not showing any form of remorse. He's not even on his face is he showing one little bit that, you know, what I did was wrong and I'm sorry. To him, he was just trying to justify it within his own mind. So he turned around, and then what the rishi did was, the rishi gave him a srap. Srap means he gave him a curse. And he said the curse is this. He goes, if you now go anywhere near, he already had his children, he had 5 sons, and those are the Pandavas. The rishi said, if you go anywhere near your wives from this moment onwards, if you have any intimate relationship with them, that will be the end of your life. And Sangatji, and what he did was what Pandu did. Out of what had happened, out of this now thinking that I've actually killed this rishi, that rishi passed away. And because of that thought of what he had done to that rishi, he then went and started living in the jungles, and his 2 wives went with him. As his 2 wives went with him, one of the days he was sitting in meditation. As he was sat in meditation doing a jap, as the Pangati has told us, where Patji talks about this, that even though somebody might be carrying out some form of japa as well. So Sangatji, as he had sat there and he was carrying out, and he was doing a japa, he was carrying out a recitation of a mantra. Sangatji, what happened was that the moment he opened his eyes, one of his wives were actually going past him, and she was dressed in such a way that she just come out of bathing and had a bath. But the moment he opened his eyes from doing that recitation, he had a moment of thought of lust, and he couldn't help himself, even though he knew the curse that he had from that rishi. But this is how powerful lust can be. When we're not living in that absolute awareness. And then as it took over his mind, he went over to his wife, and because she as well, that welled up inside of her as well, those chemicals were released within her brain as well, because that's all it is. The truth, the matter is, that's all it is. And then out of that, Sangatji, they both came together, and that moment he actually died. And then that Mahabharata, him dying, where he was the king of Hastinapur, created such a huge problem from then Dhritarashtra having to be the king and taking over the throne, and who made a right mess out of the kingdom. Sangaji, but just saying that once somebody becomes an addict, and that's why it's important for us to talk about these things, just like there's AA, there's Alcohol Anonymous for those that are addicts, those that have become addicted to alcohol. There is a group for those that have become addicted to sex as well. So Sangat Ji, it's important that we recognize it's actually, the brain has proven that it's actually can become an addiction. So the more Sangat Ji Kirtan we listen to, the more that we spend time with Gurmukhs, and like I've said before, if you're not able to at the moment, because Guru Arjun Dev Ji Ji keep taking us back to the importance of Sangat of a sadhu. So again, Sangat Ji, like today, all day as we've been doing some work in the garden, we've had in the background, we've got this Bluetooth speaker in the kitchen, and we've got the Simran, the Vaheguru Simran playing of Baba Darshan Singh Ji Taki Sahib Wale, who's a Mahapurkh that has japped so much Naam that when you listen to this Simran that is in Saj, it actually sends us the vibrations and it helps us. So I mentioned it last time, and somebody actually sent a message saying that they started listening to it since then, and it's really helped them in their life. So Sangat Ji, if we're not able to be in the presence of the Guru's Pyare at this present moment in time, then for now at least we can listen to their Simran, their Kirtan, their Bachan, their beautiful words. Sangat Ji, go online and type in Bachan of Baba Mani Singh Ji Smedik Wale, and they don't talk like me reading off something, but they're actually talking from their inside, experiencing that world of Vaheguru Ji, and they talk from that place. So for us, that going to the Sadh Sangams, Satguru Ji Pacha Ji say to us, that way we can break out of that narak of that Kaam, Sangat Ji. And just to say how important your feedback is, Sangat Ji, yesterday after I did the Katha, and I thought, you know what, I felt in my own mind that I went in circles, that, you know, I spent too long on just one topic. And then I think it was this morning I had a message saying that, you know, thank you so much for the talk on attachment, because I just spent one video on attachment, which was the last one, saying that I never understood what it was before, because I could make that choice of just doing Akri Arth, meaning literal translation of something. I could have just said that lust will take you to hell, and that's it, and left it at that, and then just so I can get through the sloks. But especially after today's feedback, that it made it all worthwhile, knowing that taking an hour sometimes on one subject, and sometimes it might come across that I'm being repetitive on a particular point, but Sangat Ji, I am doing it consciously. I've said this before. It's so that it can become our Simran, so it can sink in, because in today's world we aren't focusing and listening enough. And this isn't again judging anyone, this is from talking to people, because our attention span has become so low. So what we do is we listen to that quickly, watch that, we listen to this, we're watching that, got that playing in the background, and we're not actually contemplating and taking anything in enough. So I may not have been my normal loud self, but you know, I've got a really pounding headache today, so I had to be a bit in the car, and I was a bit more, you know, chilled out and relaxed. So it's so that this can sink in to such a level that it can actually change our life. So the next time that kicks in gear, the lust, you know, oh, that's just, it's built into us for a purpose. I'm okay, thank you. this is, I don't need you at the moment. Thank you very much anyway. So Sangat ji, इतनी एक बेनती है प्रवान, एक नहीं पर अनेक ही गलतियां हो गई हैं। अनजान समझा बच्चा समझ के बख्श लेना। आओ बुलाइए फतेह जीओ। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह।